The tablet hit the floor with a crack that silenced the corridor like a gunshot. Chief Logan Maddox stood over Petty Officer Danny Alvarez, 6 feet 2 inches of muscle and entitlement casting a shadow across the younger man's face. Behind Maddox, 4 other operators leaned against the walls of the comm hub, arms crossed, grins spreading like infection. "Pick it up." Alvarez bent slowly, fingers trembling as they closed around his equipment. The screen showed a hairline fracture running diagonally across the display. 3 months of data backups. Gone. "I said pick it up, boy." Maddox's boot nudged Alvarez's hand. Not quite a kick, just enough pressure to make a point. "What, you deaf and useless?" The corridor outside Joint Operations Command hummed with the bass note of servers and air conditioning. 0700 hours at Camp Sentinel, forward operating base in the Pacific Theater, and the day had already turned to ash in Danny Alvarez's mouth. "Chief, I was just running the morning diagnostics. Did I ask what you were doing?" Maddox turned to his audience, spreading his hands like a preacher addressing the faithful. "Did anyone hear me ask this keyboard warrior what he was doing?" Laughter. The kind that invited participation, the kind that punished silence. Alvarez stood, cradling the cracked tablet against his chest. 23 years old, 18 months in service, and he had learned one thing with absolute certainty. Men like Maddox fed on reaction. Give them nothing, and eventually they move on to easier prey. Except today, they had nowhere else to go. "You know what your problem is, Alvarez?" Maddox stepped closer, close enough that Alvarez could smell the coffee on his breath. The aftershave that probably cost more than a week of enlisted pay. "You think because you can type fast and read log files, you matter. You think sitting behind a screen makes you part of the team. I am just doing my job, Chief." "Your job," Maddox laughed, and the others followed. "Your job is to stay out of the way when real operators are working. Your job is to fix things when we break them and disappear when we do not need you. Your job is to remember your place in this food chain." The words landed like blows. Alvarez felt heat climbing his neck, the dangerous flush of anger that he had spent 18 months learning to suppress. That was when he noticed her. She stood at the far end of the corridor, maybe 30 feet away, positioned near the secure terminal bank. Navy polo shirt, regulation bun, tablet in one hand, no rank insignia, no unit patches. The kind of person who existed in the spaces between official structures. Contractor, probably. Technical support. The invisible people who kept the machines running while the warriors took credit for the results. She was watching. Not obviously, not with the rubbernecking curiosity of someone enjoying a spectacle. Her attention seemed almost incidental, like she had simply paused in her work to observe something mildly interesting before moving on. Maddox noticed her too. His grin widened. Fresh meat. "Well, well." He stepped away from Alvarez, redirecting his energy toward the new target. "What do we have here? Another support tech thinking they can just wander into restricted areas?" The woman's fingers continued moving across her tablet. She did not look up immediately, and when she did, her expression held the patient neutrality of someone who had seen this particular performance before and found it tedious. "This corridor is not restricted, Chief." Her voice was quiet, level. Each word placed with the precision of someone accustomed to communication under pressure. Maddox's eyebrows rose. "Oh, she talks. She talks and she thinks she knows the base layout better than I do." He glanced back at his crew, inviting them to share his amusement. "What is your rank, sweetheart? Coffee fetcher? PowerPoint specialist?" "Higher than you think." The response hung in the air for exactly 2 heartbeats. Then Maddox threw his head back and laughed, genuine and delighted. The sound of a predator who had just spotted easier prey than expected. "Higher than I think," he repeated, wiping his eyes. "That is adorable. That is genuinely adorable." He took 3 steps toward her, closing the distance with the casual confidence of someone who had never been challenged in this space. "Let me explain something, Miss Contractor. This is Camp Sentinel. This is a special operations forward operating base. Out here, rank is not something you claim with words. Rank is earned through blood and sweat and sacrifice. Rank is proven in the field, not in some corporate training seminar." The woman saved her work with 3 quick keystrokes. The encryption protocols on these systems changed monthly, required authentication codes that took most operators 5 minutes to input correctly. She completed the sequence in under 10 seconds. Master Chief Thomas Reich stood in the shadow of the server alcove, maintenance log in hand, watching the exchange with the practiced stillness of a man who had spent 43 years learning to see what others missed. The way she held that tablet, 3 fingers on the base, thumb and index supporting the edge. That was not how civilians gripped equipment. That was not even how regular Navy personnel handled gear. That specific hold was taught at advanced tactical schools, the kind where you learn to operate under fire, where dropping your equipment meant mission failure, where muscle memory had to override panic. Reiche's pen stopped moving. I asked you a question. Maddox was enjoying himself now, playing to his audience. Rank. What is your rank? The woman met his eyes for the first time, really met them, and something flickered in Maddox's expression, just for a heartbeat, recognition of something he could not quite name. Then it was gone, replaced by that familiar smirk. My rank, she said quietly, is not something I discuss with people who have not learned basic military courtesy. The corridor went silent. Even the hum of the servers seemed to fade. One of the operators behind Maddox shifted his weight, exchanging a glance with the man beside him. Something in that statement had carried weight, not defiance, not fear, something else entirely. Maddox's face darkened. Excuse me? You heard me, Chief. He stepped closer, close enough that she would have to crane her neck backward to maintain eye contact if she were actually looking at him. But she was not. Her gaze had shifted to a point approximately 6 inches to the left of his face. Not avoidance, not submission. The calculated positioning of someone who had studied violence the way architects studied load-bearing structures. You want to run that by me again? I have work to do. She turned back to her terminal. If you have legitimate questions about my authorization, you can submit them through proper channels. Maddox's hand shot out, grabbing a fistful of her uniform collar. The fabric bunched in his grip as he yanked her forward slightly. Listen carefully, contractor. I do not know where you come from or who you think you are, but out here, you answer when a real operator asks you a question. You show respect for what we do. You stay in your lane. She did not resist the pull, did not plant her feet or twist away. She simply stood there, letting physics dictate her body's slight forward lean. Her breathing remained unchanged. 4 counts in through the nose, 4 counts held, 4 counts out through the mouth, 4 counts empty. The rhythm continued beneath the surface, invisible to everyone watching, but somehow present in the absolute stillness of her shoulders. Reich felt the hair rise on the back of his neck, that breathing pattern, the 4x4 cadence. Combat stress management, they taught it at Fort Bragg, at Coronado, at places most people had never heard of. Maddox released her collar with a small shove. 0 rank nobody, probably some admin clerk who wandered into the wrong building. He turned to his crew. Come on, we have actual work to do. As they passed Alvarez, Maddox paused long enough to deliver one final instruction. Aight, boy. Keep an eye on our friend here. Anything suspicious, I want to hear about it immediately. You understand? Yes, Chief. The words tasted like surrender. The group moved down the corridor, their voices fading into distance. Alvarez remained frozen for a long moment, tablet pressed against his chest, trying to process what he had just witnessed. The woman returned to her terminal without comment. Her fingers resumed their dance across the keyboard, pulling up diagnostic screens and log files that Alvarez recognized as far beyond standard contractor access. He should report this. He should tell someone. Protocol demanded it, but something held him in place. The way she had stood there, the way she had taken Maddox's aggression without flinching, without showing any sign of the fear or humiliation that Alvarez himself felt burning in his gut. And in the corner of the server alcove, Master Chief Reich closed his maintenance log and made a decision. Some things demanded closer observation. The dining facility at 0745 hours operated under its own peculiar rhythm. Tables arranged in rigid geometric patterns, coffee urns that had seen 3 generations of conflict, the clatter of trays and the murmur of conversations about missions and leave, and the small complaints that made deployment bearable. Kira Holt collected her breakfast with the methodical precision of someone who understood that fuel was fuel, regardless of taste. Scrambled eggs, toast, a piece of fruit that had traveled too far from its origin to remember what ripeness felt like. She found a table in the corner, back to the wall, sightlines to both exits. Old habits, the kind that stayed with you long after the reasons for them faded into classified files and redacted records. Across the facility, Maddox held court at a table of junior operators. His voice carried with the unconscious volume of someone who expected the world to arrange itself around his presence. So, I walk in, and there is this contractor girl pretending to run diagnostics on the Secure Terminal Bank. He spread his hands, incredulous. I mean, she could not have been more than 5'7". Looks like she should be teaching kindergarten, not touching military hardware. Laughter rippled across the table. What did you do, Chief? What could I do? Explained the facts of life. Told her to stay in her lane. Maddox speared a piece of cantaloupe with his fork. Probably will not last the week. These contractors never do. They get one taste of how we actually operate, and they are gone. Back to their safe little civilian jobs, where the biggest threat is a paper cut. Kira ate her breakfast and listened, not obviously. Her attention seemed focused on her tablet, scrolling through technical documentation that anyone walking past would find immediately boring. But she was building patterns, cataloging relationships, noting which operators laughed at Maddox's jokes and which ones looked away, who deferred and who resisted, where the real power flowed beneath the official hierarchy. 3 months at Camp Sentinel, 3 months of invisibility, 3 months of watching, recording, building the case that would eventually bring everything crashing down. Her orders had been simple: infiltrate, maintain a low profile, identify the leak. Someone at this facility had been selling classified tactical data to private military tour tractors. Not just selling it, packaging it beautifully. Timed releases that maximized damage while minimizing traceability. Whoever ran this operation understood military information architecture at an expert level, which meant it was someone senior, someone with access, someone who knew exactly how to cover their tracks. The obvious suspect would be Maddox. He had the clearance, the opportunity, and certainly the ego to believe he was untouchable. But obvious did not mean correct. Her tablet displayed something that would have meant nothing to casual observers. A scraped cache of social media posts, Maddox's Instagram account, photos from the base, carefully curated to show him in positions of importance. Standing near helicopters, posing with equipment, background details visible in every frame, background details that should never appear on public platforms. She had been tracking the pattern for 6 weeks. Every time Maddox posted a photo with specific operational details visible in the background, classified information leaked to outside parties within 36 to 72 hours. The correlation was too consistent to be coincidence. But Maddox was not smart enough to run this operation alone. The access patterns were too clean, too sophisticated. Someone was using him as a channel, scraping the visual data from his posts without his knowledge, or directing him to photograph specific locations. Someone with technical expertise, someone with access to intelligence systems, someone hunting something bigger than data. A shadow fell across her table. Master Chief Reich stood there, tray in hand, expression unreadable. "Is this seat taken?" Kira gestured to the empty chair across from her. "Help yourself, Master Chief." He sat with the careful movements of a man whose joints remembered too many parachute landings. For a long moment, he simply ate, saying nothing, observing her with the patient attention of someone who had learned that silence revealed more than questions. Then, "That was interesting this morning." "I am not sure what you mean." "The way you handled Maddox." Reich took a sip of coffee. "Most people either fight back or fold. You did neither. Just stood there like you were cataloging him for future reference." "Maybe I was. Maybe." He set down his cup. "Can I ask you something technical?" "Depends on the question." Glide override protocols for the MQ-9 platform. Standard contractor training covers basic emergency procedures, but there is a secondary override sequence that requires understanding of the flight computer architecture. You know anything about that? Kira's fingers paused on her tablet for exactly half a second, then resumed. "That is an unusual question for a maintenance chief to ask a technical contractor." "That is not an answer." She looked up, met his eyes. Something passed between them. Recognition, assessment. Two professionals measuring each other across a table in a crowded dining facility. Glide override requires bypassing the primary attitude control system while maintaining hydraulic pressure to the control surfaces. Her voice remained level. Most operators try to fight automation. The trick is to work with it. Let the system think it is still in control while you feed it corrected inputs. Reich's eyebrows rose fractionally. "That is not in any training manual I have ever seen." "No, it is not." "Where did you learn it?" places that do not appear on official course catalogs. He studied her for a long moment. The woman across from him was not what she appeared to be. He had suspected as much from the moment he saw her breathing pattern in that corridor. Now he was certain. "You know," he said quietly, "I have been doing this job for 43 years. I saw a lot of people come through, seen a lot of specialists with clearances they should not have, technical consultants who know things they should not know." He stood, gathering his tray. "I have also seen operators, the real kind, the ones who do not advertise." He did not wait for a response, simply walked away, leaving Kira alone with her cold eggs and the growing certainty that her cover was developing cracks. But cracks could be useful. Sometimes you had to let the right people see through the mask. The question was whether Reich was the right person. Alvarez entered the DFAC 15 minutes later, collected his food, and found a seat as far from Maddox's table as the facility's geometry allowed. He kept his head down, his attention fixed on his cracked tablet, the body language of someone hoping to become invisible. But invisibility was harder to achieve than he realized. His route to his table took him past a corridor junction where the signal was weak and the acoustics strange, where conversations from around corners carried in unexpected ways, where he heard something that made him freeze mid-step. A woman's voice, quiet, professional, speaking into what had to be a secure communication device. "Yes, ma'am? The timeline is accelerating. I have identified the primary channel, but not the handler. Access patterns suggest Intel section involvement. Recommend continued observation before direct action." Pause, listening to a response he could not hear. "Understood, ma'am. I will report again in 1800 hours. Halt out." Alvarez pressed himself against the wall, heart hammering. That voice. He recognized it. The contractor from this morning. The woman Maddox had grabbed by the collar, calling someone ma'am, using military communication protocols. Reporting to someone with authority. Contractors did not make reports like that. Contractors did not use call signs. Contractors did not speak with the clipped precision of someone accustomed to secure communications in hostile environments. He should report this. Protocol demanded it. But to whom? Maddox? The man who had humiliated him in front of half the base? The man who would probably use this information to make both their lives worse? Alvarez retreated silently, finding his original path to his table. His hands were shaking. His appetite had vanished. He had heard something he was not supposed to hear, and now he had to decide what to do about it. The morning progressed through its scheduled phases: equipment checks, communications tests, the routine machinery of military readiness grinding forward. In the server room, adjacent to the TOC, Kira ran her diagnostics and built her case. The pattern was becoming clearer. Access spikes aligned with operational timelines. Files touched by users who had no legitimate need to view them. Information flowing through channels that should not exist. And something else. Something that made her blood run cold. A ghost in the system. An access point that appeared in the logs but connected to no known user account. Authentication credentials that existed in the database but matched no personnel file. Someone had created a phantom identity, a digital specter that could touch any file, access any system, and leave almost no trace. Almost. Kira had spent 12 years learning to find the things that did not want to be found. She knew that perfect anonymity was impossible. Every action left traces. Every ghost cast a shadow. The shadow pointed toward the intel section, toward terminals that only a handful of people could access, toward someone with the technical expertise to build this phantom and the operational knowledge to use it effectively. Her tablet chimed, a new alert. Someone had just tried to access a honeypot file she had planted 3 weeks ago, classified technical specifications for a system that did not actually exist. Bait, to see who would bite. The access came from a terminal in the intel section. Kira smiled, not a pleasant expression. The cold satisfaction of a hunter watching prey walk into a carefully constructed trap. She activated a watermark protocol, invisible digital fingerprints that would attach themselves to any data copied from the honeypot. Wherever that information went, she would be able to trace it. "Found you," she whispered, but finding was not the same as catching. She needed more, evidence that would stand up to scrutiny, connections that led from the phantom account to real people with real motivations. And she needed to understand the endgame, because whoever had built this operation was not just selling data. The pattern suggested something more ambitious, more dangerous. They were hunting something, or someone. The question was who? The Tactical Operations Center occupied the hardened core of Camp Sentinel. Reinforced walls, redundant communications, multiple displays showing real-time feeds from drones and satellites, and ground teams scattered across 100 miles of contested territory. Lieutenant Jason Ward sat at the duty officer station, monitoring status boards and tracking mission timelines with the focused competence of someone who understood that every detail mattered. 0930 hours. The morning brief had concluded. Ground Team Echo was preparing for a patrol in Sector 7. Drone support was standing by. Everything proceeded according to schedule. Ward liked schedules, liked order. He liked the clean certainty of protocols that told you exactly what to do and when to do it. What he did not like was Major Celine Hadley standing behind him, reading over his shoulder. "Lieutenant?" Hadley's voice carried the pleasant neutrality of someone who expected compliance without requiring explicit demands. "I need to see the access logs for the last 48 hours. Ward turned. "Ma'am?" "Access logs. Who has been in and out of the TOC? What systems have they touched?" She smiled. It did not reach her eyes. "Standard security review, you understand?" "Of course, ma'am." He pulled up the logs, names and timestamps scrolled across his screen, familiar faces, routine access patterns, nothing that should raise flags. Hadley studied the data for a long moment, then her finger tapped one entry. "Who is this?" "Kira Halt, technical contractor. Why does a contractor have level 3 access to our drone control systems?" Ward checked the authorization chain. "Her clearance was approved through J2, ma'am. Standard contractor protocols for technical support personnel. J2 approved level 3 access for a contractor?" Hadley's eyebrows rose. "That seems unusual. I can verify the authorization if you would like." "Do that." Hadley straightened. "And, Lieutenant, until further notice, this Halt woman is not permitted in the TOC without my explicit approval. Consider it a temporary security measure." Ward felt something cold settle in his stomach. "Ma'am, her credentials show active clearance. Her credentials are under review." Hadley's tone remained pleasant. "Final. I am issuing a formal policy directive. Red status on TOC access for all non-essential contractors. Effective immediately." She pulled out a tablet, typed something, and held it out for Ward to see. An official-looking document, her signature at the bottom. "Accept." Ward blinked. Something about the signature looked wrong. The timestamp on the document showed it had been created 3 minutes ago, but the formatting suggested it should have gone through multiple approval chains that took days to process. "Is there a problem, Lieutenant?" Ward looked up. Hadley's eyes were flat, watchful. The pleasant expression had not changed, but something underneath it had shifted. "No, ma'am, no problem." "Good." She took the tablet back. "Implement the policy immediately. And, Lieutenant, this conversation stays between us. No need to create confusion by discussing preliminary security measures with people who do not need to know." She walked away, her boots clicking against the floor with the measured rhythm of someone who knew exactly where she was going and why. Ward stared at his screen for a long moment. The access logs continued to scroll, names, timestamps, the digital fingerprints of everyone who touched the systems that kept Camp Sentinel operational. Something felt very wrong. He could not explain it, could not articulate the source of his unease. Just a sense, deep in his gut, that the conversation he had just had was not about security. It was about something else entirely. And somewhere in his memory, a detail surfaced. The signature on that document, the way certain letters had formed. He had seen that handwriting before, on documents that had not been written by Major Hadley. The DFAC buzzed with lunchtime activity when the whispers started. Alvarez was trying to eat his sandwich when he noticed the looks, sidelong glances from operators at nearby tables, conversations that stopped when he walked past. The subtle social signals that indicated he had become a topic of discussion. His phone buzzed, a notification from the unofficial group chat that most junior personnel used, the one that was technically against regulations but everyone knew about. He opened it. The messages made his stomach drop. Did anyone else see the IT boy talking to that contractor this morning? Heard he called her ma'am, like she was an officer or something. Maddox is saying he is probably feeding her information, helping her access systems she should not touch. Dude is definitely simping for some random civilian. Pathetic. Watch your backs. If he is helping her, who knows what else he is doing. Alvarez set down his sandwich. His hands were shaking again. He had not talked to her, had barely exchanged 3 words, but the narrative was already forming, spreading through the base like infection. Maddox had planted the seed, and now it was growing into something that could destroy his career. Across the DFAC, he saw Maddox watching him with a satisfied smile. The chief raised his coffee cup in a mock toast. Message received. This was what happened to people who did not stay in their lane. This was the punishment for witnessing things you were not supposed to see. Alvarez gathered his tray and left, appetite gone, the weight of isolation pressing down on him like physical force. Behind him, the whispers continued. The afternoon brought thunder, not literal thunder. The sky above Camp Sentinel remained clear, the sun harsh and unforgiving against the desert landscape. But inside the Tactical Operations Center, systems began to fail. Temperature warning on UAV-7. The drone operator's voice carried the controlled tension of someone watching a situation deteriorate in real time. Hydraulic pressure dropping. Lieutenant Ward moved to the operator's station. Displays showed the MQ-9 Reaper cruising at 15,000 feet, 43 miles northeast of the base. Below it, Ground Team Echo moved through contested territory on a patrol that had been approved at the highest levels. Source of the warning? Unknown. All pre-flight checks were nominal. Systems were green across the board until 3 minutes ago. Another warning flashed. Fuel flow is irregular, communications intermittent. Ward felt the familiar tightness in his chest, the sense that control was slipping away, that events were accelerating beyond his ability to manage them. Get maintenance on the line. I want diagnostic data streaming to their station immediately. Working on it, sir. The TOC was filled with the controlled chaos of crisis response. Personnel moved between stations. Voices layered over each other, trading information, requesting updates, trying to understand what was happening 30 miles above the surface of the Earth. Master Chief Reich entered through the side door, drawn by the spike in radio traffic that he had been monitoring from his maintenance alcove. Status? His voice cut through the noise with the authority of 4 decades of experience. UAV-7 is experiencing cascade failures. Ward did not look up from his console. The ground team is in the field. If we lose Overwatch, they are blind. Reich moved to the tactical display. The drone's position showed as a blinking icon, its trajectory beginning to wobble as systems fought against each other. Pilot, remote stations are the problem, but they are hitting walls. Something in the control software is not responding to standard inputs. Reich studied the data streams flowing across multiple screens. Temperature, hydraulics, fuel, communication, all trending in the wrong directions. And then he saw something else. A second access point, the ghost account. Someone else was touching the drone's control systems. Someone with authorization that should not exist. Ward. His voice dropped low. Who else has access to this bird? What do you mean? I mean there is a second control input. Someone is either trying to help or trying to interfere. I need to know which. Ward pulled up the access logs. Names and credentials scrolled past. Standard operators, maintenance personnel, and then a gap, an access point that connected to nothing. A phantom touching military hardware. I do not know who this is, Ward said slowly. There is no user ID attached. Maddox chose that moment to enter the TOC, drawn by the commotion, looking for an opportunity to assert his relevance. What is happening? He pushed past a junior operator. Someone tell me what is happening. We have a drone in distress and an unidentified access point touching its systems. Ward's voice was tight. We are trying to isolate the source. Maddox's eyes narrowed. Unidentified access? Like someone hacking in from outside? Or inside? Rice's voice was flat. The connection originates from within the base network. That contractor. Maddox's face flushed with vindication. I knew it. I knew that woman was trouble from the moment I saw her. He turned to the security station. Get a team wherever she is. I want her detained for interfering with military operations. Wait, Reich's voice cut through. Check the secondary diagnostic feed. All eyes turned to the screen. Someone was running repair routines on the drone's systems, not the phantom access point. A different connection. Someone using legitimate contractor credentials to fight against the cascade failures. Kira Halt. She is not causing the problem, Reich said slowly. She is trying to fix it. Or she is covering her tracks. Maddox was not ready to let go of his theory. Making it look like she is helping, while her partner does the real damage. Partner? Ward looked confused. The ghost account, someone inside, working with her. Maddox's conspiracy was building momentum. Think about it. She shows up, starts asking questions, accessing systems she should not touch. Now we have an unidentified user sabotaging our equipment. Coincidence? The drone's altitude dropped another 500 feet. On the ground team's position, movement appeared on the ridgeline to the north. Movement that did not match any friendly unit positions. Contact, the operator's voice cracked. The ground team has potential hostiles on the north ridge. The TOC erupted, voices shouting, personnel reaching for communication equipment, the organized chaos of people trying to prevent disaster. And through it all, the drone continued to fail. We are losing altitude. The operator's voice held barely controlled panic. Override is not responding. We cannot maintain the flight path. Reich made a decision. Get her in here. What? Maddox spun toward him. You cannot be serious. That woman has no authorization. Hadley just issued a policy. Hadley's policy does not override life safety protocols. Reich's voice carried the absolute authority of someone who had spent 4 decades learning when rules mattered and when they did not. There are 6 operators on the ground about to walk into an ambush. If we lose that drone, they die blind. I do not care about credentials. I care about those people. This is a breach of override security restriction. Reich looked directly at Ward. Lieutenant, this is a life safety situation. Protocol 14B allows temporary access for specialized personnel during emergencies. I am invoking it now. Ward hesitated. He thought about Hadley's directive, the strange signature on that document, the cold certainty in her eyes when she had issued her orders. And then he thought about 6 people in a valley, counting on a drone that was dying above them. Do it. His voice came out steadier than he expected. Get her in here now. The door opened 30 seconds later. Kira entered the TOC with the calm efficiency of someone who had been waiting for exactly this moment. Her eyes swept the room once, cataloging positions, assessing threats, identifying the systems she needed to access. Status? Her voice cut through the noise. UAV-7 is in cascade failure. Reich moved to her side. The ground team is approaching an ambush zone. We need eyes or they die blind. Kira was already moving toward the primary control station. The operator there started to protest, then caught Reich's expression and simply moved aside. Her fingers touched the keyboard. The screens responded. Show me the failure tree. Her voice had changed, still quiet, but with edges of command that had not been there before. Data cascaded across the display. Interconnected systems, failure points, the digital anatomy of a dying machine. Maddox stood in the corner, arms crossed, watching someone he had dismissed as insignificant take control of his domain. There is a second access point interfering with the flight computer. Kira's fingers moved faster than anyone watching could follow. Someone is feeding conflicting commands to the attitude control system. The drone is fighting itself. Can you stop it? Ward leaned forward. I can if I bypass the primary flight computer entirely. Her eyes never left the screen. That requires authentication codes that exist above standard contractor clearance. Then we are stuck. Ward's voice held despair. We cannot generate those codes in time. Kira paused, turned her head slightly, met Reich's eyes. Something passed between them, recognition, understanding. The glide override protocol we discussed this morning. Her voice was barely above a whisper. You asked if I knew it. You knew I would need it. Reich nodded slowly. I had a feeling something was going to break today. Call it experience. Are you sure about this? The ground team has 30 seconds. She turned back to the screen. Her fingers entered a sequence that should not have worked. Authentication codes that existed only in the most classified corners of military systems. Override protocols that were supposed to require multiple levels of approval. The system accepted them. Override engaged. I have control. The drone's status indicators stabilized. The temperature dropped. Hydraulic pressure normalized. The ghost access point disconnected, kicked out by protocols it had not anticipated. Camera feed coming online. Her voice remained flat, professional, completely at odds with the chaos around her. Ground team, you have hostiles on the North Ridge. Count 7. Armed. Wait. Her fingers moved again. The camera zoomed, enhanced, revealed. Heat signatures in the valley floor, buried, probable IEDs. She looked at Reich. They are walking into a double trap. Ambush above, explosives below. The room went silent. Radio team lead, Reich's voice carried no doubt. Now, The communication officer made the connection. Echo Lead, this is base. Halt movement immediately. You have a hostile north ridge, probable explosives in the valley floor. Confirm receipt. Static. Silence. The longest 3 seconds of anyone's life. Then, base, Echo Lead, copy all, halting movement. Request alternate route. Kira spoke before anyone else could. Tell them to hold their position. I am building them a path. Her fingers danced across the keyboard. The drone's camera swept the landscape, building a map, identifying safe passages, constructing an escape route in real time. Alternate path bearing 270. Terrain will mask them from ridge observation. The ground is solid for 600 meters. After that, they need to move fast. Ward relayed the information. Echo Lead acknowledged. On the screen, 6 small figures began moving west, following the route that Kira had constructed from 15,000 feet of altitude and 12 years of experience reading terrain under fire. The hostiles on the ridge did not pursue, could not pursue. The angle was wrong. The trap had been set for movement in one direction, and Echo was now moving in another. They are clear. The relief in Ward's voice was physical. Echo Lead confirmed safe passage. The TOC exhaled as one, but the drone was not finished. Warning, Kira's voice cut through the celebration. The interference caused permanent damage to the flight computer. This bird cannot return to base. If it crashes in enemy territory, they will have intact sensors and communication equipment. Can you guide it to a recovery zone? Negative. The terrain is wrong. She made a decision. I am putting it down hard. Her fingers entered the final sequence. The drone's nose tilted. Its descent steepened. On the camera feed, the ground rushed up. Impact in 5, 4, 3, 2. The screen went black. Silence. Then the radio crackled. Echo Lead's voice, distant but clear. Base, be advised. Your bird just ate dirt about half a click from our position. Nothing left but spare parts. Whatever you did up there, thank you. That thing saved our lives before it died. Kira sat back from the console. Her hands were steady, her breathing unchanged. 4 counts in, 4 counts held, 4 counts out, 4 counts empty. Behind her, Maddox stared with an expression that mixed fury and something that might have been fear. Those override codes, he said slowly. Those are not contractor level. Those are not even officer level. Who are you? Kira did not answer, but the door to the TOC was already opening. The sound of boots hitting concrete echoed through the sudden silence. Not casual footsteps. The measured, deliberate pace of authority arriving. Lieutenant Colonel Mason Vance entered the room. He was not a large man, 5'10", lean build, the kind of physical presence that came not from size but from absolute certainty of purpose. Behind him, Sergeant Parker and 2 security personnel. Expressions are serious, sidearms visible. Vance's eyes swept the TOC once, cataloged every face, stopped on Kira, and something changed. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. The air itself seemed to thicken, pressing against everyone present with physical weight. Vance's spine straightened, his hand began to rise, and then, in a voice that could have shattered concrete, "Attention!" The word exploded through space like a detonation. Every person in the TOC snapped upright. Instinct, training, the bone-deep response to command authority that years of military service had carved into their nervous systems. Vance's hand completed its movement, came to his brow, held, a salute, directed at Kira. "Major General Halt." His voice carried the formal cadence of official recognition. "Task Force Echo. I apologize for the delay. My transport was held at the airfield." The room stopped breathing. Maddox's face went pale, then white, then something approaching gray. Major General, the woman he had grabbed by the collar, the woman he had called sweetheart, the woman he had dismissed as a coffee fetcher and a paper pusher. Major General, 2 stars, higher than anyone in this room had ever encountered in person, higher than he could have imagined in his worst nightmares. Kira returned the salute with the crisp precision of someone who had performed this ritual 10,000 times before. "Colonel Vance, report." "Ma'am." Vance reached into his jacket and withdrew a small hard drive. "We traced the ghost access point, the phantom account that was interfering with the drone. It connects to a terminal in the intel section." He held up the drive. "This contains authentication logs, file transfer records, and communication intercepts. Someone in this facility has been selling tactical data for 8 months. They have been using Chief Maddox's social media posts as a data channel, scraping operational details from photographs he posts online. Maddox made a strangled sound. I never. You did not know. Kira's voice was ice. You were the pipeline, not the source. Someone was using your photographs to transmit information, but you were also the cover. When this investigation got close, they were going to let you take the fall. Who? Ward stepped forward. Who is behind this? Kira looked at Vance. He nodded. The ghost account traces to a terminal that only 3 people can access. One of them is Major Celine Hadley. Silence. The policy directive she issued this morning, Ward said slowly, blocking contractor access to the TOC. She was trying to keep you out, keep you from seeing what was happening. She was also trying to isolate me. Kira's voice remained level, and possibly worse. The access pattern suggests she was not just selling data. She was hunting someone. Hunting who? Kira met Ward's eyes. Me, or anyone else who got too close to the truth. She turned to Vance. Status on Hadley? Security is moving to her position now. She will not leave the base. And the document she used to block TOC access? Vance pulled out a tablet. Forensic analysis confirms the signature was forged. Lieutenant Ward's instincts were correct. The authorization was fake. Ward's face showed relief and something else. Vindication. I knew something was wrong, he said quietly. I should have trusted my gut. You did. Kira's voice softened fractionally. You let me in when it mattered. That was the right call. She turned to face the room, every person standing at attention. Every face showing some variation of shock, disbelief, or dawning comprehension. Her eyes found Maddox. He was trembling. Chief Maddox. Her voice carried the quiet weight of absolute authority. You will surrender your credentials and submit to a security escort. Your role in this operation is being evaluated. If you were merely careless, you will face administrative action. If you were complicit, you will face court-martial. Maddox opened his mouth, then closed it. His world was crumbling in real time, and the expression on his face showed every stage of the process. Ma'am, his voice cracked. I did not know. I swear I did not know. That remains to be determined. She nodded to Sergeant Parker. Take him. Parker stepped forward, professional, efficient. The movement of someone who understood that this moment would be remembered for years. Chief Maddox, hands behind your back, please. Maddox complied. What else could he do? The woman he had mocked that morning was a 2-star general running a classified investigation. The hierarchy he had claimed to understand had just revealed depths he never imagined. As Parker escorted him toward the door, Maddox turned back one last time. I was just doing my job, he said. I was just trying to maintain order. Kira met his eyes. No, Chief. You were maintaining your ego. There is a difference. The door closed behind him. Silence filled the TOC. Then Vance spoke again. Ma'am, security reports they have reached Major Hadley's position. Status? She is not resisting, but she is asking to speak with you personally. Says she has information you need. Kira considered for a moment. Bring her here. I want everyone in this room to hear what she has to say. Yes, ma'am? As Vance relayed the order, Kira turned to survey the personnel around her. Operators who had watched her be humiliated for 3 months. Officers who had followed protocols that blocked her access. Support staff who had whispered about her in corridors and laughed at Maddox's jokes. What you witnessed today, she said quietly, is what happens when systems fail. When people prioritize convenience over security. When they dismiss the quiet voices and reward the loud ones. She paused. Some of you participated in that failure. Some of you enabled it. Some of you simply watched and did nothing. Her eyes moved across the room. That ends now. The door opened. Major Celine Hadley entered between 2 security escorts. Her uniform was immaculate. Her expression was controlled, but there was something in her eyes that Kira recognized. The look of a predator that had finally met something higher on the food chain. General Halt. Hadley's voice carried cold amusement. I wondered when you would surface. I heard you died in Syria 3 years ago. Reports of my death were strategically useful. I imagine they were. Hadley smiled. It did not reach her eyes. You know, I almost caught you twice. That access pattern last month, the honeypot you planted, clever work. Not clever enough to avoid being found. No, Hadley's smile faded. But clever enough to know that I am not the end of this chain. There are people above me who will be very interested to learn that Kira Holt is alive and hunting. The room went very still. Is that a threat, Major? It is information. Hadley shrugged. You wanted to know who I was working with. I can give you names, networks, the entire architecture of an operation that spans 3 continents. Or you can arrest me now and spend the next 5 years trying to untangle it yourself. Kira studied her for a long moment. You are offering to cooperate. I am offering to survive. There is a difference. Hadley's eyes hardened. The people I work for do not tolerate failure. If I go to prison, I am dead within 6 months. If I cooperate, maybe I will get witness protection. Maybe I will get to see another sunrise. And in exchange, Hadley leaned forward slightly. I will tell you who ordered the attack that was supposed to kill you in Syria. I will tell you who really runs this network. And I will tell you what they are actually hunting. She paused. Because it was never about the data, General. It was never about selling tactical information to contractors. Her smile returned, cold, knowing. It was about finding people like you, people who disappeared, people who were supposed to be dead but kept causing problems for the wrong interests. She met Kira's eyes. Welcome back from the grave, General. Your resurrection just made you the most valuable target on 3 continents. Kira's expression did not change, but somewhere behind her eyes, pieces were falling into place, connections forming. The true scope of the operation became visible for the first time. This was not about one base, one leak, one corrupted officer. This was about something much larger, and she had just announced her survival to the people who had tried to kill her. The door to the TOC remained open. Beyond it, the sun continued its arc across the sky. Ground Team Echo moved towards safety, through a route carved by a woman who had spent 3 months being invisible, a woman who had let them mock her, a woman who had let them dismiss her, a woman who was not finished, not even close. If you are feeling that satisfaction of seeing justice begin to arrive, subscribe for more stories where the quiet strength demolishes the loud arrogance. Because this is only the beginning, and what comes next will change everything. The silence that followed Hadley's words pressed against the walls of the TOC like something physical. Every screen continued its quiet work. Every system hummed its baseline rhythm, but the humans in the room had stopped breathing. Kira studied the woman being escorted toward the door. Major Celine Hadley, intel officer, handler, traitor, and now a prisoner who had just revealed that the enemy lived inside the walls as much as outside them. Hold! Kira's voice stopped the security team mid-step. Major Hadley, you said someone in my own organization leaked my status. Explain. Hadley turned, her expression carrying the cold amusement of someone who still held cards she had not yet played. Operation Lazarus does not rely on pattern analysis alone, General. That is how they find candidates. But confirmation requires human intelligence. Someone who knows which ghosts are real and which are just talented contractors. You are saying there is a source inside the program that created my cover. I am saying that 18 months ago, someone provided a list. Names, locations, cover identities, everything needed to begin hunting. Hadley's smile sharpened. I was given your file 3 months before I arrived at Camp Sentinel. Your photograph, your habits, your operational history. Everything except confirmation that you were actually here. Who provided that file? Above my access level. Hadley shrugged. I reported to a handler. The handler reported to someone else. The architecture is compartmentalized precisely to prevent people like me from knowing too much. Kira processed this. A leak at the highest levels of a program so classified that most generals did not know it existed. Someone with access to the complete roster of deniable assets. Someone who had decided to sell that access to hostile actors. Take her. Kira nodded to the security team. Secure holding, no communications, no visitors. I will conduct a formal interrogation at 0600 hours. Hadley offered no resistance as they escorted her out. But at the threshold, she paused one final time. General, one more thing. Kira waited. The ghost account. The phantom access point that was interfering with your drone. Hadley's voice dropped. I did not create it. I used it, but I did not build it. Someone else on this base has technical capabilities that exceed mine. Someone who was here before I arrived. The door closed behind her. The TOC fell into weighted silence. Vance stepped forward. Ma'am, if what she says is accurate, then Hadley was not the architect. She was a tool. Kira turned to the main display, pulling up the access logs from the drone incident. The ghost account predates her arrival. Someone built that phantom identity months ago, established its access permissions, and has been using it to move through our systems undetected. Ghost tech, Reika's voice was rough. That is what the maintenance crews have been calling it. Strange access patterns, files touched by users who do not exist. We assumed it was a glitch in the authentication system. It is not a glitch. Kira's fingers moved across the keyboard, tracing the Phantom's digital footprints. It is a masterpiece. Whoever built this understood our security architecture at a fundamental level. They knew exactly where the gaps were and how to exploit them without triggering alerts. Ward moved closer to the display. Can you identify the source? Not yet. The account was created using credentials that trace back to a maintenance terminal, one that dozens of personnel have accessed over the past year. She paused. But the creation timestamp is interesting. 14 months ago, 3 months before Hadley arrived. Someone prepared the battlefield before she ever set foot on this base. Exactly. Kira turned to face the room. Hadley was the visible threat, the one we were supposed to catch, but the real operator is still here, still watching, still... A sound interrupted her. Not an alarm, something smaller, more personal. A phone notification. Every eye in the room turned toward Petty Officer Danny Alvarez, who stood frozen near the secondary terminal bank. His cracked tablet was clutched against his chest. But it was his phone that had made the sound, the personal device that should have been secured in the communications locker during duty hours. Petty Officer, Kira's voice carried no accusation, only observation. You have something you should not have in the TOC. Alvarez's face had gone pale, not the pallor of guilt. Something else, something that looked like fear. Ma'am, his voice trembled. I think you need to see this. He held up his phone. The screen displayed a text message from an unregistered number. The words made the room go cold. You should have stayed quiet, IT boy. Now, watch what happens to people who talk. Below the text, an image. A photograph of Alvarez's service record, his home address, his emergency contact information. Everything that would be needed to destroy his life or end it entirely. When did this arrive? Kira's voice remained level, but her eyes had hardened. Just now, 30 seconds ago, Alvarez's hands were shaking. Ma'am, I have not told anyone anything. I have not... I know. She crossed the room in 3 strides, taking the phone from his trembling fingers. This is not punishment for something you did. This is a warning about something they think you might do. She turned the phone so the room could see the message. The network is still active, still monitoring. They know we captured Hadley, and they are already moving to protect their remaining assets. She looked at Alvarez. Which means they consider you a threat. Why? Alvarez swallowed. The weight of every eye in the room pressed down on him. Because I know things. His voice cracked, then steadied. Things I should have reported weeks ago. He reached into his pocket and withdrew a small data drive. This morning, after Chief Maddox spread those rumors about me, I got angry. Angry enough to start looking. I have access to communication logs as part of my maintenance duties. I started tracking patterns, call records, access timestamps, things that did not add up. He handed the drive to Kira. Chief Maddox received 17 calls over the past 3 months from an unregistered number. Each call lasted between 2 and 4 minutes. Each call happened within 48 hours of a confirmed intelligence leak. Kira inserted the drive into the secure terminal. Data cascaded across the screen. Call logs, timestamps, correlation analysis that Alvarez had built himself, using skills that Maddox had dismissed as useless keyboard work. There is more. Alvarez's voice grew stronger as he spoke. 2 weeks ago, I was running maintenance on the comm systems. I heard Maddox talking to someone. He did not know I was there. He tapped the drive's secondary folder. Audio played through the TOC speakers. Maddox's voice. I understand. The contractor is still asking questions. Should I escalate? A distorted response. Maintain pressure. Make her visible. We need confirmation before extraction. Maddox again. And if she runs? The distorted voice. She will not run. Her type never does. They are too committed to the mission. The recording ended. Silence ended. Then Kira spoke. Petty Officer Alvarez, you have been conducting your own investigation for 2 weeks. You have evidence that directly implicates Chief Maddox in coordinated espionage, and you said nothing. It was not an accusation, it was an observation, but Alvarez flinched as if struck. I was scared. The words came out barely above a whisper. Maddox has friends everywhere. The whole base follows his lead. I thought if I came forward, no one would believe me. They would just say I was trying to get revenge for the way he treated me. And now? Alvarez straightened. Something shifted in his posture. The hunched shoulders of the perpetual victim began to square into something that resembled resolve. Now, someone just threatened my family. His voice hardened. Now I do not care who believes me. I care about stopping them. Kira studied him for a long moment. The young man who had spent 3 months being crushed under Maddox's boot, who had watched her be humiliated and said nothing, who had finally found the courage to act when his own survival demanded it. Petty Officer Alvarez, her voice carried weight, what you just provided is actionable intelligence. It corroborates Major Hadley's statements, establishes Maddox's role as a knowing participant rather than an unwitting tool, and proves that the network is actively monitoring our investigation. She paused. It also makes you a target. You understand that? Yes, ma'am. And you are still willing to assist? Alvarez met her eyes. For the first time since he had arrived at Camp Sentinel, he did not look away. Ma'am, I spent 18 months being invisible, being dismissed, being treated like I did not matter. He swallowed. Today I watched you take command of this room. I watched you save 6 lives because you knew things that nobody expected you to know. I watched you turn everything upside down because you refused to stay in the lane they assigned you. He straightened further. I want to matter. I want to help. Tell me what to do. Kira nodded slowly. Then welcome to the real mission, Petty Officer. The next 2 hours transformed the TOC into a war room. Kira worked with her team to construct the trap, a modified signal that would appear to confirm her presence at Camp Sentinel while suggesting she remained unaware of the surveillance. Bait designed to draw the network's remaining assets into the open, but the real weapon was the ghost account itself. Whoever built this phantom identity is still using it. Kira pulled up the access logs, highlighting patterns that others had dismissed as system noise. They accessed the drone control systems during the Cascade failure. They touched Hadley's terminal 3 times in the past week. They have been watching everything we do. Can we trace them? Ward leaned forward. Not directly. The account bounces through too many nodes. She paused. But we can bait them. Make them think their access is still secure while we monitor their movements. She turned to Alvarez. Petty Officer, you are going to help me build a honeypot, a file that appears to contain my extraction timeline, my communication protocols, my next moves. Something valuable enough that whoever controls the ghost account will not be able to resist accessing it. And when they do, we will have their location. Kira smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. Every ghost casts a shadow. We just need the right light to see it. The work proceeded with methodical precision. Alvarez demonstrated technical skills that surprised everyone except Kira, who had recognized his potential from the moment she saw him working with equipment that Maddox had dismissed as beneath real warrior concern. The honeypot file took shape: classified appearance, encrypted wrapper, invisible watermarks embedded in every byte that would attach themselves to any system that copied the data, tracers that would activate the moment someone accessed the file from the ghost account. At 21:45, the trap was set. At 21:47, someone took the bait. Movement, Alvarez's voice was tight. The ghost account just accessed the honeypot. They are copying the file. Kira watched the watermarks activate. Digital fingerprints spread through the network like dye through water, following the data as it moved from their honeypot to wherever the ghost was hiding. Track it. The trace bounced through nodes, server to server, terminal to terminal, a maze of misdirection designed to prevent exactly what they were attempting, but the watermarks were persistent, patient, following every fork in the path until finally, they resolved to a single location. Got it. Alvarez's voice carried disbelief. The ghost account is accessing the honeypot from a terminal in the intel section, but not Hadley's office. He pulled up the location data. It is coming from the office next to hers, the one assigned to... He stopped. The room went very still. Lieutenant Ward. Alvarez's voice was barely a whisper. The terminal is registered to Lieutenant Jason Ward. Every eye turned to Ward. He stood frozen at his station. His face showed shock, genuine, uncomprehending shock. That is not possible, his voice cracked. I have not accessed any ghost accounts. I have not touched any honeypot file. I have been standing right here for the past 2 hours. Kira studied with him. The lieutenant who had trusted his instincts when Hadley gave him a forged document. The officer who had let her into the TOC when lives were at stake. The man who had seemed, throughout this entire ordeal, to be exactly what he appeared. Master Chief Reich, her voice was calm. Secure Lieutenant Ward's credentials. Do not detain him yet. Just secure his access. Ma'am, I did not... I know. She held up a hand. Your terminal is registered to your office, but that does not mean you were the one using it. Someone has been spoofing access credentials all day. Hadley's signature was forged. Your terminal location may be equally fabricated. Ward's breathing steadied slightly. Then how do we determine the truth? We follow the shadow. Kira turned back to the display. The watermarks had done their job. They had traced the ghost account to a terminal location. But locations could be faked. What could not be faked was the physical act of accessing a terminal at a specific time. Security footage. She looked at Vance. Get me camera feeds for the intel section. Every corridor, every entrance. I want to see who was physically present in that wing when the ghost account accessed our honeypot. Vance was already moving. On it. The footage took 3 minutes to compile. 3 minutes of tension that pressed against everyone in the room like rising water. Then the images appeared on screen. The intel section corridor. 2147. The timestamp matching exactly when the ghost account had taken the bait. The footage showed Lieutenant Ward's office door, closed, no movement. And then, in the adjacent frame, movement in the corridor, a figure walking with measured purpose toward a terminal alcove that the camera barely captured. The figure paused, looked up, directly at the camera, and smiled. The face was familiar to everyone in the room. Sergeant Parker? Reich's voice was hollow. The security NCO. The man who had escorted Maddox to detention. The man who had stood guard while Hadley was questioned. The man who had been present for every critical moment of the investigation. The man who was supposed to be protecting them. Where is Parker now? Kira's voice cut through the shock. Vance checked his radio, made calls, received responses. His face went pale. Ma'am, Sergeant Parker signed out of the security office 18 minutes ago. He cited a personal emergency. He is no longer on base. The words landed like physical blows. 18 minutes. The ghost had walked out the front door while they were busy setting traps and analyzing data. Lock down the perimeter. Kira's voice remained level, but urgency hummed beneath the surface. Alert all checkpoints. I want every vehicle that left this base in the past 20 minutes stopped and searched. Ma'am, if he is already off base, then we track him. The watermarks are still active. Wherever he took that data, we can follow. She turned to the main display, activating the tracer network. The signal appeared immediately, moving fast, already 30 miles from Camp Sentinel and accelerating. He is heading for the airfield. Ward had recovered enough to assist. Private aviation terminal. If he reaches it before we can intercept, he reaches nothing. Kira pulled out her personal communication device. Not a standard military radio, something smaller, something that connected to networks most people did not know existed. She entered a code, waited. A voice responded. Calm, professional, the tone of someone accustomed to receiving calls at unusual hours. Confirmation required. Kira Halt, Authentication 77 Alpha. Confirmed. What do you need, General? Fugitive intercept. The subject is Sergeant Nathaniel Parker, U.S. Army, currently traveling east on Highway 47 towards Sanderson Private Airfield. He is carrying classified data marked with Sovereign Ghost protocols. I need him stopped before he reaches that aircraft. Assets are moving. Intercept in approximately 14 minutes. Alive. I need him alive. Understood. The connection closed. Kira turned back to face the room. Officers, operators, support personnel, all of them watched her with expressions that ranged from awe to uncertainty to fear. The network thought they had us mapped. Her voice carried through the silence. They thought Hadley was their only exposed asset. They thought Parker was invisible. She looked at the screen, where the tracer signal continued its flight toward freedom. They were wrong. The next 14 minutes stretched like hours. The TOC remained locked down. Personnel monitored systems, tracked the signal, waited for word from assets that operated in spaces most of them would never see. When the communication finally came, it was brief. Target secured, no casualties, data recovered, awaiting instructions. Kira allowed herself one small nod. "Bring him here. I have questions." The clock on the wall showed 22:15. Outside, the desert night continued its endless watch. Stars wheeled overhead. Somewhere, Ground Team Echo slept safe in their bunks, unaware that their survival had triggered a cascade that was still unfolding. Alvarez stood at his station, no longer trembling. The threatening message still glowed on his phone, but its power had diminished. The network had tried to silence him. Instead, they had given him a reason to fight. Ward worked at his console, cleared of suspicion but forever changed. The knowledge that his identity had been stolen, that his terminal had been used for treason, would mark him for years to come. Reich watched from his corner, seeing everything, missing nothing. 43 years of service had taught him many things. Tonight had taught him one more thing. The quiet ones were often the most dangerous. And Kira Holt stood at the center of it all, already planning the next phase. Parker would talk. He had no choice. The data he carried, the watermarks he could not remove, the trail he could not erase. All of it pointed toward networks and handlers and architects who still believed they were safe. They were wrong. "Ma'am," Vance approached with a tablet. "We have Parker's communication logs. Preliminary analysis shows regular contact with an encrypted server. The routing traces to—" He stopped, stared at the screen. "What is it?" "The server." His voice was barely a whisper. "It is not external. It is internal. Someone established a classified communication node inside the Pentagon's own infrastructure, hidden in plain sight." Kira took the tablet, studied the routing data, felt the pieces clicking into place. The leak in her own organization, the source who had provided her file to Operation Lazarus, the architect who had built the Ghost account and placed assets at bases across the Pacific. All of it traced back to a single point. A node inside the Pentagon itself, someone with the highest clearances, the deepest access, the authority to create programs that no one else would ever see. "It is not over." Her voice was quiet, certain. This was never about one base, one leak, one corrupted officer. She looked at the screen, where the routing data pointed toward the heart of American military power. This is about the entire architecture. Someone built a system for hunting ghosts, for capturing deniable assets, for turning our own invisible soldiers into weapons against us. She set down the tablet. And they are still out there. The TOC hummed with the quiet rhythm of systems and secrets. Outside, the first hints of dawn began to lighten the eastern horizon. A new day is approaching. A new phase is beginning. Kira Holt had come to Camp Sentinel seeking a leak. She had found a war. And now, standing in a room full of people who had learned the price of assumptions and the value of quiet competence, she understood that the real mission was only just beginning. The Ghost account was traced. Parker was captured. Hadley was secured. But somewhere in Washington, someone was watching, waiting, planning their next move. And when they made it, Kira would be ready, because ghosts do not die. They just fade into the shadows until it is time to strike again. Thank you for listening to this story. If you enjoyed it, please take a moment to like, subscribe to our channel, and turn on the notification bell. See you in the next story.